What's up, guys? Austin Divine back here with the Walking Divine YouTube channel. Today I wanted to bring you a very special video. You know, for some of you guys who do know, some may not know, but my wife Julie is pregnant and we are expecting an awesome little boy here actually in about 1 month, which is crazy. We didn't really post too much on social media. When we made the official announcement to our family at around 12 weeks or 14 weeks is when I think we announced it. We haven't really made any official posts or anything. However, she is pregnant. We are having a baby boy and he is due December 21st. And that is about a month from today, which is crazy to even think about. And through this whole process, I've been reading some books to understand the pregnancy process, to be there for my wife, but also books on fatherhood. And I don't know if it was ever as real as it is now since we found out the news she was pregnant. You know, once we found out, like, you don't really see many changes right away, in all honesty, for the man, right? For the woman, they start to feel it pretty quickly, but for the man, it's like, okay, this doesn't seem real. Once the wife starts showing and the belly starts growing, things start to get a little bit more real. Once you see that first ultrasound of the heart beating and whatnot, things get a little bit more real. However, once you start getting like a month out, things start really, really getting real. And I know that when we're in the delivery room and I hear the cry for the first time, I know then not only will it be real, but it will be reality, okay? So, you know, needless to say, Julie and I, we are super excited. But for me, I mean, in all honesty, there are some fears there. There are some major, major fears. Like, we're excited, we're pumped, but I don't know, there are some emotions. And so today, I thought it would be good to title the video, 3 Fears of Becoming a Father as Someone Who is Blind. 3 fears of becoming a father as someone who is blind. You know, these 3 things are not all related to me being blind, but the first one is. However, I do think that my blindness does kind of trickle into all 3 of these things. But it is something that I really do have to address, and it is really a real battle. You know, I've never been a father. I've been blind for a long time, and that gives me some comfort. I know how to be blind. However, I've never had to be blind with raising a child. There's so many things that kind of scare me a little bit when it comes down to that. So I'm going to share these 3 fears that I have, but then I'm going to close out on a super encouraging note and tell you what my perspective currently is. So let's hop on in. Number 1, the first fear that I have about becoming a new father as someone who is blind is the obvious: I can't see and I'm going to be raising a child. What do I mean by that? I mean, honestly, guys, a few things have come to my mind that I'm just, quite honestly, a little freaked out about. Number 1, changing diapers. Okay, you know, and people have their jokes about fathers changing diapers and things like that. But for me, I'm excited to change some diapers. I really am. However, I am a little scared of what that process is going to look like. I don't know, just something about, you know, and at home, I'm not as scared about that, right? Because at home, you're in your home, you know where things are. You know, I have a really great memory of where things are at my home. I'm actually, the part that scares me the most about that is doing things like that in public or in public restrooms. It's like, man, I gotta take a dirty diaper off, find a proper place to throw it away. I need to clean the baby properly, make sure nothing gets on me. And if something does get on me, I may not even know that it got on me. And all those things are a little daunting to me, you know? You know, some of the fears are being in public with the baby. Maybe I'm by myself and the baby, you know, there's a little baby blow up, right? And maybe I don't even notice it, or maybe I do because I'm sure, you know, there's some smells. But sometimes I can fear, okay, what are other people thinking right now, you know? That's not something I normally deal heavily with, but when you add a little human in there, And everybody's going to look at me with a little baby, you know, they're like, wow, how, as a blind man, this is really interesting, right? You know, that's one of the things. Another thing that I think about quite often is teaching my son sports. Man, that is a challenging, that's something I'm kind of fearful about, right? Why? Well, I'm totally blind. I have zero vision, right? And so how do I play catch with my son? You know, that's like a real fear, you know? It's like, how do I play catch with my son? How do I teach him how to shoot a basketball? How do I teach him how to throw a football? How do I teach him how to pass the soccer ball? How do I, you know, and there are some really cool principles on playing team sports that I can teach him. I played team sports growing up, and I trained for the Paralympics for a while and things like that. But that's like a real fear, you know, man, teaching my son how to play sports and to be great at them. Like sports are, it's a huge part of my life, and I want it to be a huge part of my son's life. And so for me, I'm like, I don't love the idea of somebody else teaching my son sports. However, I understand that the way that I do things will have to be modified. You know, I understand that the way that I operate and the way that I approach things, it does have to be a little modified. But that's a real fear of mine. I think about feeding my son. I'm like, man, like, you know, like, okay, is the food on the spoon? All right. Is it still on the spoon as I go towards his mouth? All right. Where, it's like, man, all of these things are so unknown. I do understand this. I have many friends who are totally blind parents. Okay. Just to be clear. And they do an incredible job. Shout out the two that come to mind, Tyler and Leanne Marin. Shout out, love you guys a ton. I have so many friends who do a great job. And I know that I'll adapt. I know these things. However, this is where I'm at before I adapt. You know, these are the thoughts that I'm having right now as a young man, first child, totally blind, figuring this thing out. Okay, so that's number one. You know, what's my fear? I'm blind and I'm going to have to adapt. I know that I will, but initially this is where I'm at. It's a little fearful. Number two, the second fear that I have is, I mean, honestly, just raising a little baby into a little boy into a teen into a young adult, and so on and so forth. There's a lot that goes into building a man. And I think it's heavy on my heart to want to do that well. You know, I want to raise my son to fear God. I want to raise him to honor God. I want to raise him to be polite, to honor his father and mother, but also to be a productive member of society, whatever that looks like for him, you know? And it's a little daunting to know that I now have the task, myself and my wife, alongside one another, to raise this little dude into a whole grown man who is going to add value to this world. That's a little scary to me. You know, that's something that, I don't know, you know, I don't know if many people really talk about it. It's a huge responsibility. It's so big. I love reading books, so you better believe I'm gonna be digging into some books. And if you guys have any suggestions, drop them in the comment section. If my blind parent friends have any suggestions or different tips and tricks, drop it in the comment section. I'd love to hear, or reach out to me directly. But these are some real fears. Number three is another one. But I'll be honest, guys, I love my life the way that it is right now. And so the third fear that I have in becoming a new dad as someone who is blind, and honestly, this isn't really tied to blindness necessarily. It's really tied to a lot of us, and maybe some of you guys can relate, or maybe I'm just totally off my rocker and I'm the only one that struggles with this. But I love my life, and I know that I can be selfish with parts of my life, many parts of my life. I'll give an example. I really love my morning routine. You know, I wake up, you know, every morning, brew some coffee, read my Bible, I pray, I read a different book outside the Bible. At that point, I normally go on a run, or I go to the gym. My workouts anywhere between 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or even 2 hours, depending on how long my run is for the day and what I'm training for. And this part of my life, my mornings are so special to me. Even so much so that when something comes up with my wife and and things get interrupted, honestly, guys, it kind of throws me off. And I know that a baby is going to do more than, interrupt a morning schedule. They're going to take hold of it at some points. And I know that there's some things that I can do to mitigate this, right? Get up earlier, get things done quicker, so on and so forth. But overall, I do know that for me to be the father that God is calling me to be, I'm going to have to be, 100 times more selfless. And I don't describe myself, at least I don't personally describe myself as a selfish person. I think I'm fairly selfless. However, I know that with having kids, your selflessness, I don't know if there's another way to simulate selflessness in the way that having kids does. And I've had many people tell me that. And that's really scary to me. A friend of mine, shout out Zach Dryden, Christina Dryden, love you guys. They just had their second baby and man, he said it's like a juggling act. It's like, you put one down, you're feeding another one. You're playing with one and one's waking up from a nap. And I'm like, man, that is, and I just said, hey, what's the one thing that you've learned? He's like, hey, you get very little time to yourself. I'm just like, wow, that is just a huge, huge step towards selflessness that I'm about to take, but I don't know if I'm fully ready, if I'm honest. And that's a little scary to me, turning my life upside down in that way, raising a little man into a productive member of society, learning the tricks of the trade of being a blind parent. Like all these things do bring some fear into my heart and into my mind. However, one of my sayings that I've always lived by is, in order to be courageous, there's always got to be a little bit of fear. If there's never any fear, there's no opportunity to be courageous. And so that's my conviction. So although I am a little fearful, although there are some parts of me that are like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, I do feel excited to be courageous. And despite some of these fears, let me let you guys know, my wife and I, we are super excited to have a son. We're so excited to have a baby. We're super pumped. I know it's going to transform my life more than everything has outside of my relationship with God. I know that this baby is going to change me for the best. And so for that, I'm super excited. But these are some fears that I do need to wrestle through, sometimes even on a daily basis. So I'm asking for your guys' prayers. I'm asking for your guys' thoughts. Keep me in mind. Say a prayer for me. And I'm excited to keep you guys updated. Please like, please subscribe, comment on the video, and tune into the next one so we can get deeper into my life and we can walk divine together. See you guys soon.